All right, I'm going to have my wife come up here with me tonight. And as you might recall, what chapter of Ecclesiastes are we in? If you want to turn in your Bibles there or your mobile device, I wrote a song about this chapter. It goes something like this. I don't remember how it starts. Anyway. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. Blah, 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 blah. And a time to every purpose unto heaven. I remember that because my wife walked up, and every time I'm near her, I sense the presence of God being gracious to me. So, anywho, I'll get up, sweetheart. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 is going to open our eyes to the seasons of life and the different challenges and joys that we all experience. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have known great joy? Look at your spouse right now if you're married and say, yes, the day I married you, I felt joy. What? Why is it so quiet? Now, how many of you have known deep sadness? And how many of you thought that neither one of those was ever going to end? You see, the seasons of life, the joys as well as the heartaches, are there for but a season. And there's a reason. My mom used to say to me, and then I'll let my wife take over for a second. I check on our kids, but she would say, you know, Shane, I know that you're struggling right now, but it's just a season. It's just not the ending of your story, but the ending of a chapter that God is still writing and he hasn't forgotten you. And so whatever your season is, whatever chapter you're in, even if we're getting towards the last third of the book, God is still with you. He's still the author of your story. And this too shall, and it's not even the NFL season. I can say that in basketball too, right, Gary? Yeah, let's pray for Charles. Cast out the demons. All right, sweetheart.
Get out. Yeah, it's been a rough week. So Ecclesiastes 3, if you guys have your Bible open, I have the NIV out here. And this is probably the most famous passage in Ecclesiastes. It says, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun. And this next part is actually written as prose or poetry. And it has an arc to it. It's going to start with like the high points of your life, and then it's going to dip down to the inverse. So it's going to show there's a time to be born, wah, wah, and there's a time to die. There's a time to plant, wah, wah. There's a time to dig up the weeds in your garden. There's a time to kill, not the same as murder, but a time to kill. And there's a time to heal. There's a time to tear down, a time to build up. There's a time to weep. There's a time to laugh. There's a time to mourn. There's a time to dance. There's a time to scatter stones and gather stones and brace and refrain, search, give up, keep, throw away, tear, mend. Does it seem like it's getting to be a pretty exhaustive list at this point? Well, many people are saying that's intentional. The writing of this is meant to be intentional. And it's to kind of wear us down as we read about this cyclical nature of life and how it just gets exhausting at some point. Do you guys ever kind of feel that one too? That it just keeps going. And I was thinking of, there was any country music listeners out here? Anybody in a country? That song that kept dancing through my head was Time Marches On, Tracy Lawrence, I think it is. You guys remember Time Marches On? That's the one that just kept marching through my head. And Steel Magnolias, got anybody that likes Steel Magnolias out here? The movie? Okay. Said to my sister the other day, I'm like, what happened? I have officially reached the age of life where at least once a week I am quoting that movie. And the one that keeps coming to my mind from that one is Time Marches On, and sooner or later you realize it's marching right over your face. I say that all the time. But that's this idea that time just keeps going. In verse 9, it says, "And what does the worker gain from his toil? I have seen the burden that God has laid on him, and he has made everything beautiful in its time, and he's also set eternity in the hearts of men, yet they cannot fathom what God has done from beginning to end." So let's try to take a minute to unpack this one. And I think the big takeaway this week is exactly what Shane was pointing to, is that one of the toughest realities I think any of us face is that moment when we realize that for a large part we have very little control over our lives. We have very little control. We have a dear counselor friend who has kept us married for however long we've been married now. And she always says in these really tough moments, because we see her at least once a year to try to stay sane, she always says, "You are not losing control." I know, you're like, things are out of control. Like, she's like, you are not losing control. What you're losing is the illusion of control that you've been able to hang on to thus far. That's what you're losing. Because most of us can white knuckle it long enough to feel like if I just try harder, if I just do more, if I just have enough of a checklist, if I plan my day well enough, if I eat healthy enough, if I get my 20 minutes of walking every day, if I stretch properly, if I do all the right things, then this is gonna turn out okay, right? Like we have this false sense of hope, and that's what we talked about the first week of Ecclesiastes, this like transactional faith that we have with God. Okay, God, I'm gonna show up to church and I'm gonna do the dance, and then you're going to make things smoother for me and make things easier for me, and if I do my part, you're gonna do your part, right? And that's kind of this transactional idea that we have in life. Also, like, okay, I'm gonna do my part, and if I just work hard enough, and if I just try hard enough, and I just give it my best, then it'll all work out. And when the wheels come off the bus, do you ever have that moment, or maybe it's just me, you're like, well, I'm just gonna double down and try harder. I will just try harder. I will just try harder. Like, we kicked this illness, so I'm just gonna get up and I'm gonna exercise more, and we made it through this heart attack, so I'm just gonna cut out my salt, and I'm gonna beat it next time, and I'm gonna kick it next time, and it's gonna be okay. And I think the sick, sad truth of Ecclesiastes is that he says, you know, those are all good things. Those are all good things. But at the end of the day, we have no guarantees. There are absolutely no guarantees. And as depressing as that sounds, thank you for coming tonight to be made sad. As depressing as that sounds, he actually gets on to a really helpful verse. He goes on to 22, and hopefully we can get there tonight. In verse 22, the very end of chapter 3, he says, "So I saw that there is nothing better for a man than to enjoy his work, because that is his lot. For who can bring him to see what will happen after him?" Okay, so this book, if you read it, it will get you real depressed real fast. But the central theme that we keep coming back to is that you're going to have high points, you're going to have low points. It's high and low. If it feels like you're on a roller coaster, it's because you're on a roller coaster, okay? But what God is saying is that the gift is the journey. The gift is the journey. The gift is appreciating the moments, the individual moments. God said when I sent you to this earth, I knew it was broken. I knew you would have heartache. But the gift is that you get to do it. So the shift of thinking we're encouraged with here in Ecclesiastes 3 is to switch our thinking from how can I make the most of our days, like how can I try harder? And by the way, that's a running joke with Shane and I. It's one of my favorite ones. The running joke, well, I'll just do more. I'll just do more.
That is the running joke. When the wheels are flying off the bus and like no one can get this shit under control, one of us will just look at the other one and we're like, well, I guess I just need to do more. There's no possible way we can do more. There is no more in us. But that's the answer that everybody gives us, right? Like, just do more. Just do more. It'll all be fine if you can just do more. But the idea is that there are no guarantees. Doing more is not going to fix the problems. Doing more is not going to help you appreciate it. So what we need to do, if we can, is to step back and get back to that original focus that we talked about. If we can remember, this isn't my life that I've invited God into. This is God's plan and God's agenda that I get to be a part of. And if we can envision ourselves almost like the poem last week, like actors upon a stage, and say, we get to be part of the ride. And sometimes the ride is going to include like getting splashed in the face with junk we don't want to be splashed in the face with. But sometimes it's going to have beautiful views. And if we can embrace that the lows are going to come, it's going to help us sit back and try to appreciate the highs a little bit more.
Yeah, I think one of the most challenging, you guys can tell me whether I'm wrong or right, but I think I'm getting
You're wrong.
close. Welcome to my life at home. When we're young and healthy, it's easy to enjoy the ride. As we get older, the thing that I hear from folks,
Take it easy.
there's only room in this family for one rock star. And we know who that is. I think it's easy for us to begin to question, okay, my grandpa Hargrave, when he was about 80 years old, my grandma had passed away. I remember him saying to me, I was devastated over my first love, my first breakup, devastated, and he had just lost the wife of 49 years. And he looked at me and he said, son, I know you're sad now, but you've got your whole life in front of you. Wait till you get to the point in life where you have more behind you than you do before you. And I think that that is a thought that we have. Do you believe at whatever age you are, all in your mid-50s right now, that God still has a plan for you? That there's still life to be lived, that you still have a purpose? I hope so too, because I believe that we do. Now, this statement could come back to bite me in the butt someday. And if you're watching online and I said this and it's 20 years in the future, delete this. But even in our lowest lows, as long as God has given you a pulse, He's given you a purpose. I'll never forget Charlie. Where's Charlie? I love Charlie. Charlie is probably the most in shape person in this room at the young age of 92. 91? 92? 92. The other day he's driving a pickup truck from 1975 or so. And you know, he was working his tail off, picking up heavy things, throw them in the dumpster, getting in the dumpster, breaking boxes that somebody in the office did refuse to break up. I don't know who that was. Probably Mo. And I said, Charlie's amazing, and Dick is out there working right beside him. Dick usually comes back bleeding, and I don't know why. But Charlie is like, it's like he's got scale armor on. And I said, Charlie, thank you. And he said, hey, if you got a pulse, you got a purpose. And that's, do you believe in the season of life that you're in right now, that God still has a purpose for you? That there's still a story to be written. If you can't walk, what can you do? If you can't read anymore, goodness gracious, I'm at that age now where I have to, take pictures of cans with my phone and then make them bigger so I can read them. What somewhere I got, but I don't carry them with me. At some point, you have to begin discovering the new you in this new season. Okay.
That was exactly my point as well. A lot of times we'll spend our lives berating what we can't do anymore, what we don't look like anymore, what we don't have anymore, and we fail to grasp and truly appreciate what is it that you still have. Let's change the lenses, archaic as the idea is. Instead of your cup being half empty, let's think of it half full. And that's really what Ecclesiastes is trying to point to here. So he says, there's nothing better for you to enjoy your work, because this is your lot, for who can bring him to see what will happen after him. In this moment, in this day, what can you do? What are you doing? What do you get to appreciate? And rather than spending our lives thinking about what's in front of us, if you're young, or what we used to have and we lost that's in the past, spend this moment saying each day is a gift. Each day is a gift. What have I been given today? And that's maybe one of the greatest travesties that you're going to read through the book of Ecclesiastes. He talks about people working and toiling and laboring. And I'm sure no one can relate to this, that you spend the healthiest, strongest years of your life working day in and day out, hour after hour, day after day, and you, can I say it, waste that healthiest, strongest, most active part of your life on this belief that I'm making things better for my family, I'm making things better for me, I'm working my way up the ladder. And at some point, you got to step back and say, those youthful, healthy days are gone. Did I miss it? Was it about building the bigger house? Was it about having the bigger investment? Or is there some part of you that is sincerely far more valuable than what you did, or the career that you had, or the money that you saved, or any other of the 5 things that you do in your life? Because if we fundamentally believe that you as a person are worth more than what you do, then we can appreciate any stage of life saying, I'm not what I can do, I'm not what I can offer, I am made in the image of God. This life I've been given is a gift, and each day I'm still here, he's given me an opportunity to be part of his story. And I get to be in the journey. And the people that say that my best years are behind me are the people who just haven't lived long enough to realize that the soul that lives inside this body is completely unchanged. That soul is still the same person. The vessel may have changed, but I am the same person with the same value and the same worth, no matter what the vessel looks like on the outside.
My mom used to say when she would look in the mirror, she had this little go downstairs. We lived in this 150-year-old farmhouse. When I was growing up, we didn't have air conditioning or heat. We just had a wood-burning stove. Maybe you know what that's like. So, but she had this little room off to the side. We called it my mom's room. She'd go in there, and she had all of her makeup, all of her jewelry in this one spot. And she would say, Shane, when I sit down to put on my makeup, I don't know who the old lady looking back at me is. That's not what I think about. To the point of our soul does not age like our body. We mature, hopefully. We are more aware of the presence of God. But the soul is the thing that lives on forever. That's who you are. What you look like is what you wear. And I don't know about you, but in the 1990s, I wore Bugle Boy jeans, tight rolled on the bottom with a college sweatshirt. Mine was Yale. My best friend's was Harvard. We were never going to go there, but we wore them. You know, we change and we dress differently. As our body gets older, we grow differently and act differently. But most of us probably still feel like a 17-year-old kid on the inside. That's why Grandpa driving the Charger is ready to race the young kid in a 1995 Mustang, because that's who we are, right? The problem is Charlie would have to get out and push his truck because it can't spin, what's that, burn rubber like we used to. I was going to say something else from what you said too. Oh, anybody like get tired of standing in lines? What do you think when you're standing in a line? Hurry up, get out of my way. That person's irritating. They got a big head. We start. I don't know. That's not what I would think. That was probably what you guys think. But you know what I think in my mind? I think that's 1 minute I'll never get back. That's one more minute of my life that's just drained away. It means more to me at this age, in the way that the economy of my minutes of my lifespan. That's what my dad said in the book of Psalm. I think it's Psalm 90 says, 70 years you are given. Some even live to see 80. And he's like, I'm living on borrowed time, Shane. So what do we do with the economy of time that God has given to us? And as we get older, how do we become wiser in the way that we dispense those minutes and those seconds? That's why my wife says, video games are dumb, Shane. Why do you play them? That's why she says, why are you watching these basketball games that will never affect you? And at that I say, be gone, Satan, get behind me. But what is the economy of your time that you have left? The great Christmas carol by, I don't know what you said, but Charles Dickens. He's writing the story about a man whose time is redeemed. He realizes at the end of his life he's missed so much. You can't go back and change it. All you can do is change the way you spend the minutes you have left going forward.
So that's really the question that I think that we all have to ask, and that Ecclesiastes is inviting us to ask. If we are not guaranteed the next minute, we're not guaranteed that we're going to be healthier tomorrow than we are today. Maybe this is as good as it ever gets. And let's just thought experiment for a minute. Say for whatever reason you get called up yonder tomorrow, and
that means die.
When the road is called up yonder, I'll be there. Well, I think we all know the hymn. If we don't, we can boo and heckle the preacher. If you get called up yonder tomorrow and the Lord said to you, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I'm going to give you 5 minutes back on earth to do whatever you need to do on earth. What would we spend that 5 minutes doing? If Nana could show back up on earth, what would she want to do? What would we want her to do? We'd want her to see the kids. We'd want to hug her. We'd want to love her. And we wouldn't care if that dear woman was in a walker or a wheelchair or anything else. If you only had 5 minutes to do whatever you wanted to do and you had to bottle it all together, what would it be? And why are we not doing it now?
Did we read the passage yet?
Ecclesiastes? Mm-hmm.
All the way through?
No, which one are you looking for?
The 3.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
You were
we
read.
did that. Mm-hmm.
By the way, what version are you using?
I have NIV. I know you're looking at NLT.
So some of you asked that question. She's using the New International Version. I'm using the New Living Translation. Okay.
You have NLT? Okay. I was thinking a lot of you guys had NLV or NIV, so I brought it here. And so we're going to go on to 4, and it says this. In 4 verse 5, the fool folds his hands and ruins himself. Oh, woe is me. I can't do anything. I can't go anywhere. I'm not any use to anyone. Oh, woe is me. I'll let the world come to me. But verse 6, better 1 handful with tranquility than 2 handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Rather than saying, what can't I do right now? Ask yourself, if you're here, God is allowing you here for a reason, what can you do now? What can you do? What can you do now that only you can do now? Maybe in some very sad way being we have a dear friend who got very, very sick later in life, and she said, I thought at the time it was the worst thing ever, but then I realized, even though I was really sick, I then had, since I wasn't working anymore, I got to be there to watch my grandkids at their games. And maybe you're doing it with an oxygen mask, but if you were healthy and at work, you wouldn't be able to do X, Y, Z. And maybe if circumstances had been different, you would have had this life, but what are you allowed to live here and now? So my sister-in-law, Brad's wife, Jane, I don't know if you know this, she gave me this candle, like battery-operated candle, after, it was either Zeke or Isaiah. I had miserable pregnancies. They were
Me too.
They were bad. Yeah, yeah, it was rough for you. And she gave me this candle that says, find joy in the journey. And I think, in a nutshell, that really encapsulates the story of Ecclesiastes, that this life is a gift, and it's an incredibly difficult, and it's incredibly painful. And I got hit right in the face with how painful it is yesterday. But we've got to consider that in spite of the pain, in spite of the setbacks, if I'm still here, I get to be part of the gift. I get to be part of God's story. I get to be part of the divine dance that's going along.
You know, I got married, you guys know, later in life, and it's been a hard life. Emotionally, it's been a challenge. I mean, it's been a battle. I struggle with anxiety and depression at times. And for a long time, for many, many years, I look forward to the day that I get to be with Jesus. And Erica keeps saying, no, you can't check out. You've got to fight for every moment because your kids need you. We were in men's Bible study. How many of you guys go to that on Wednesdays? Great Bible study if you can be a part of it. But one of the things they talked about was the wounds that our children receive from either our toxic presence or our what's the opposite of presence? Absence. I knew I'd come up with it. And I thought to myself, my kids need me. And as much as whenever the Lord calls me home, I will be ready to go, my kids need me for as long as I can gut it out here and make a difference in their life. And, you know, Erica said that she would push me around in a wheelchair. She'd change my diapers. She would do whatever she wanted until she needs to send me to a nursing home, which may be immediately. But I don't want my kids to suffer because of me. And I think that I want to give you some homework. And obviously we're not quite done yet. We've got another 10 minutes. So I want you to think of there's two questions I want you to consider. The first one is this: what is it you're looking forward to in life? And the second one is, what is it that you can do right now in your life to make a difference in someone else's life? And I want you to come back next week knowing the answer to those two questions. If you don't know right now, that's okay. I want you to pray about it. I want you to remember my dad's great theology that he shared with me long ago. Everybody hold up their thumb. Repeat after me. I am, don't jump ahead of me. I am somebody. Erica thinks I'm hokey. I probably am. Okay, sweetheart. Talking to your mic.
Okay. And then we get this really hopeful verse marching on in chapter 5 here at the end. It's in 5:18. Then I realized it is good. He goes through all of these things that frustrate him, that
humans live and yet they die just like the animals. Are we even better than the animals? I work and I toil, and the things that I work and toil for go to other people. I sleep and I get rest in my sleep, but I also suffer great misfortune. I work hard to build up wealth and hoard it, and then my wealth is all taken from me. It's all very cheery. It's a great pick-me-up verses here. But he gets to 5:18, and he says, "Then I realized that it is good and proper for a man to eat and to drink, to find satisfaction in his toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given him. For this is his lot. Moreover, when God gives any man wealth and possessions and enables him to enjoy them, to accept his lot, and to be happy in his work, this is a gift of God. He seldom reflects on the days of his life because God keeps him occupied with gladness of heart." The last part of that I really appreciate, where he says he seldom reflects on the days of his life because God keeps him occupied with gladness of heart. So in the Christmas account, when Jesus is being born, there's this passage that really stands out to me. We're told on 2 different occasions, "And Mary treasured up all these things in her heart." I love that verse. It's like the most obscure verse in Scripture, but it always resonated with me for exactly this reason. What if, rather than just rushing through our days, rushing through our moments, what if we took a moment and we just really let them sink in? We really let them sink in what I'm getting to experience right now, what I'm getting to do right now, and what this moment is, that this moment is a gift. There's been so many moments that Shane and I will look back and we will laugh about the crazy antics our kids did, but in the moment, we're about to lose our minds. And there are moments that we're like, yay, this is great, but we don't even catch cuter moments until we go back and see the pictures. And so with Shane's story about, or his homework assignment for you, what can we be doing and investing in these hours that we have, days we have left, years we have left? Can we be really intentional, like this last verse says, embracing the gladness of heart? Can we really be intentional about treasuring all of these things up in our hearts? So it's not just an abstract concept. Every day's a gift. The Lord gave me my life. Every day's a gift. Too blessed to be stressed. That's also a running joke between my sister and I. When the kids have us running around like our hair's on fire, they'll say, "How are you doing?" "Too blessed to be stressed. Too blessed to be stressed," which is the biggest lie you ever heard in your life. We're being sarcastic. But what if we took that moment to actually say, help me treasure up the good and the beautiful in this moment, because I'm not guaranteed that anything good or beautiful is going to be coming next, and help me truly appreciate this. I have this bookmark in my Bible, and it's this quote that is not from Scripture, but I think it really sums up the heart of Scripture. It says, "The most perfect prayer is a single grateful thought raised to heaven."
There are a couple things I want to catch back up on. My brain thinks too quick or too slow, I'm not sure. But one of the things, I went to the dentist today. Anybody ever go to the dentist? Anybody really enjoy the dentist beside my wife? She's like, "Giddy, I'm going to the dentist today." I'm like, I hear the death march in my back of my mind as I go to the dentist. And I was just getting my teeth cleaned because I had such a bad experience when I was little. I had ear infections. They rotted out my baby teeth. The medicine they gave me, I had 4 crowns by the time I was 4. It was a mess. But I went today, and she's cleaning. Instead of using that little scrapey thing, it goes. Now they have what they call a water pick. It gets all the tartar away. I was trying to keep my mouth open today, and I got a big mouth. I mean, my wife will tell you, I bet it differently too. I can open my mouth wide, and I kept trying to remind myself, relax. And then I'd relax my smile. But then I would find myself like, your face is like, I don't know. And I had to keep reminding myself, okay, relax your muscles. The reason I bring that up is because I think in life, we do that, right? We get so chaotic would you stop laughing at me?
Picture of that moment.
Well, looky here. The Lord
bringing
giveth
joy
and
to
the
my
Lord
life.
taketh away. Anyway, see the burden I have to carry? Anyway, I think about that, right? We go through life and we have to remind ourselves, we have to stop. No. Take in this moment. Be present. Erica always is saying that to me with the kids. You know, I'm so busy. I'm a doer, right? I accomplish things. That's what I do. I go through my goals. I get things accomplished, and I move on. And she's always like, you got to be present. You need to be present with us. Don't just check this off the list. You need to be present. Take today. Take some time on the way home. Turn off your radio, you know, the sports radio, news station, Old Rugged Cross, Christian Contemporary, the Byrds who sang the song that I wrote, Turn, Turn, Turn. And just be present with God. Lord, what is it you want to teach me tonight? What is it you want to tell me? The other thing, and then we'll close with this, unless you have something else. If she doesn't show up tomorrow, you'll know something happened. The dad... Yeah, if I don't show up, the first person you need to look into is...
You made the face, like right there for God and everybody to see.
It is on video, so I can edit that part out, though. My dad talked about the passage in Luke where Jesus tells the story about Lazarus and the rich man. You remember that story? There's a part in that story. Would you stop laughing?
I'm fine. I'm totally fine.
There's a part in that story where the rich man is suffering in Hades. And he says, let me just go tell my brothers. Erica said, if you had 5 minutes left and you knew that you were going to die, what's the most important thing you would want to do? What would you want to say? What would you want to show? Because at the end of our life, we can't go back.